Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Super Paranormal Chronicles. Tonight, I am more than delighted to have Austin Lawrence with me. Austin is a paranormal investigator, an author, and a filmmaker. Austin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, were you actually born in Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah.
Still live in the same town.
Oh man, how has it changed during your growth? Has it changed much, or is it still the same?
I haven't seen a whole lot of change. Some of the colleges are building up, so we're getting some of that gentrification going. We have a Chipotle now. That's something we never knew existed before. So,
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I want to start right at the very beginning. So, how did Austin Lawrence get involved with the paranormal? What was your first sort of like stepping stone?
yeah, I mean, I've always been pulled into the direction of the weird. When I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, my favorite movies were it just Sixth Sense came out, and I was obsessed with it as a kid growing up. And then every Halloween, you always got the shows that came on where it was like the most haunted and stuff like that. And I just got so obsessed with it. So I started researching very young age, and it wasn't until the first season of Ghost Hunters actually came out where I was like, wait, I can go out and do this. This is a thing that people do. Okay, let me do that.
Yeah, that's really cool because I could kind of say the same kind of thing because in the UK, because I've only been in Canada for 12 years, we had a show called Most Haunted.
Yes, that's one of the ones I remember watching. That it was always on like ABC or something like that during Halloween, and I loved it.
That's it, yeah. And I was like avid follower, and it's weird how looking back to what it is now, because you can still get it on reruns and stuff like that. To the equipment that they used or didn't use per se to what we actually have now.
Right.
It's like it's as different as chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it's crazy how the field has evolved over the years. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, are you still an active investigator?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I'm working on filming for my show, and I'm gone every month up until October now. So I'm traveling all over.
So, when you started, getting really involved, and you decided that you was either going to join a paranormal investigation team or you was going to create your own, how did that kind of like plan out?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I actually didn't know anyone anywhere that was really involved in this stuff. Now, back when I was in high school, I used to play in a band, and I ended up hosting a concert. And I found this random band from West Virginia, and haven't heard any of their music, but I was like, I need to try to get these guys to come out. So they drove like 4 hours, came out, played the show with us, and then drove back home and went to school the next day. And I'd become good friends with the vocalist of that band, who was super into the paranormal, and he just happened to live in Point Pleasant, home of the Mothman, you know. So we started talking back and forth, and then all of a sudden, I'm driving down to Point Pleasant every week, and we're going out and we're investigating together because that's the only person who I ever met who was like serious about this. So that's kind of where it all started and started kicking off.
That's crazy. And it's like I say, I used to love watching Most Haunted, but one of the things that really kicked it off for me, and I've told this story quite a few times on previous podcasts, I was in the emergency services in the UK and I was a paramedic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had a new colleague with me because my current colleague was sick. We got called to a cardiac arrest. So we're doing all the CPR and that stuff. And this guy just casually looks across at me and says, yeah, the patient's spirit tells you that you can stop. And I'm like,
what?
Sorry, what? Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. The patient's spirit stood behind you and he's watching you, and he says that his time's come and he's not coming back. And it was like, dude, you can't tell me that in the middle of a cardiac arrest. And I went, with all due respect, could you tell the patient that I've got my job to do, and by protocol I've got to carry on? So he went, oh no, the ghost says it's all good. And I afterwards, and this guy didn't make it, and we were back on the vehicle afterwards. I went, dude, you don't tell me that you're a medium in the middle of a cardiac arrest. It's like, well,
Yeah, that's something pretty heavy to drop in an already heavy situation.
that's why it's sort of like you stop and go, did I just hear right?
Right.
So I always tell like people that story, and it's like it's one of my best stories to tell. So being a paranormal investigator, can you recall some of your significant investigations before you started creating the Dead Chronicles?
Yeah, so well, my very first one ever was Waverly Hills. So that was a way to like just kind of just
Wow.
jump off the bridge and go right to it, and that was absolutely phenomenal. I love Waverly Hills. After that, the big one that we had was probably Prospect Place Mansion in Trimway, Ohio. Still one of my favorite places of all times. Really amazing location. And from there on, it's just like every location has its own little unique thing that just really sticks with you after you leave.
Yeah, because I know I mentioned it slightly before we came on air, but at the weekend I was in a small place in New York State called Casanova, and they've got a hotel called the Bray Lock Inn, and
Okay.
it's a little nice little town, nice little like hotel. Well, it's not a smaller hotel; it's a big one. And I experienced my first apparition
Wow.
this last weekend. I was just laying down in bed, just shut my eyes after doing an investigation about 1:30 in the morning, and I felt a weight sit on my bed, and it's one of these really old four-poster beds.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, okay, it's probably the old blankets that are settling. But then it did it again, and I thought, no, this is not. Open my eyes, and I've just got this white apparition going past, and I'm like, did I
That's
just see that?
amazing.
Yeah, and that thanks to this place, and it's like it's a hidden gem. It really is. If ever you get the chance to go to New York State, highly recommend it because this has got some really cool like stories.
No, that's great. And it's always such an honor when you get to experience stuff like that.
Yeah,
They're willing to spend their energy to come out for you. And it's just it's something that you can't even begin to describe.
that's right. We actually kind of found that if these spirits are intelligent, what they have a habit of doing is doing stuff when you're not recording.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yes. So we had like a cupboard door open, and we're like, all three of us like, what? Yeah, that cupboard door just opened, and we closed it. We put the latch back on. We banged it. We jumped up and down, and we could not get it to unlatch and to open.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, thanks, guys. None of us have got cameras on, and it's just like, well
Right.
done. Yeah. So, still talking about your investigating field. Are you like one of a tech guy that's got all the gadgets, or do you keep things basic?
So I am a tech nerd, but I keep things basic when it comes to investigating. So I love my cameras. I have an EDI meter that I love, and I'll pull out audio recorders. I'll use tape recorders, and I'm pretty bare bones when it comes to things.
Yeah, because it's quite funny because you see quite a few TV shows
Mm-hmm.
that use all the stuff that people say that you shouldn't use.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a TV show, Haunted Discoveries over here, where
Yeah,
these guys do things like really professional, and I always try
Yep.
to walk in the same path that they walk in. And
Absolutely.
if we do use particular pieces of equipment, we put it to the test.
Yes.
Like a K2 meter or REM pod, we will
Yep.
put it to the test. So we go like, okay, you've got a radio, yeah, you walkie-talkie. Oh, yeah, it activates it. And we actually found that a REM pod would be activated by unplugging and plugging in a fan
Absolutely.
because of the power surge. So we do have some of the toys and gadgets, but we always put them to the test. And if we can say, well, yeah, this is a piece of crap, then we
Right.
don't use it anymore. And it's and unfortunately, you get a lot of people that look at things and go, "That's nice and shiny. I'm going to buy one of them,"
Yes.
and they don't care if they get proper evidence with it. But I always try to stay on the straight and narrow and follow these guys because, like I say, what they do things, as I call it, the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's strange. I'm so lucky to be really good friends with those guys,
Oh wow!
especially Brandon. And this a couple months ago, I got to spend about 2 or a week on set with them filming for a couple of their episodes.
Oh
And
man,
Brandon has been such an asset for me in so many different avenues. And if I ever capture anything before it goes into a video, I send it to him and I say, prove this wrong.
yeah,
And when it comes to equipment, I always talk to him when it comes to theories because they just blow my mind with the stuff that they do.
100%.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and I've got a similar guy um, who lives in Canada. If I get any audio, if I get any
Mm-hmm.
video, I will send it to him, and he will analyze it even down as far as doing like the voice waves
Yes,
and
yes,
stuff
the
like that. And
spectrographic and stuff. Yep.
exactly, and he'll go, "This is you. This is the noise.
Mm-hmm.
That noise is not you," and stuff like that. And when people find out that that's how we operate, they know that we're taking this seriously rather than just a fly by night group that like, oh, let's go out and find something spooky. And I
Yeah.
think that's important with investigating.
No, I totally agree because if we take in all this other equipment stuff, we could prove that, an outhouse is haunted easily. But what does that do for us? What does that do for the field? What does that do for anything? So I'm totally right there with you. And Brandon and his crew have been a huge inspiration on how I really operate and move forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, because this guy that I use, he's actually got a company that does paranormal courses, and he asked me to teach him to teach a paranormal equipment course. So the first week you go through your audio and your video. The second week was the diagnostics, so like your tri-field kind of thing, and your
Uh huh.
EDI. The third week was the pseudo equipment, so your REM pod, your cat balls, all that. And then the fourth week was the old fashioned stuff, so like the Ouija board, dowsing rods, pendulum. And
Wow.
I actually break things down into like, okay, guys, this is the REM pod. Yeah, it's good for playing with, and in the right circumstances, you can use it to your benefit. However, there are
Mm-hmm.
times when it can be affected by alternative sources, electricity, cell phones, radios. And like the guys that actually were on my first course, my students, they were like blown away because I was completely honest about how good or how crap something was,
Right.
and they really did appreciate that. And
Don't,
I try to tell people like, this is what you need to do. Don't 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 play with gadgets that are not going to get any evidence.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and I'm glad that there's people out there doing it because there's a lot of things. Even I moved to wireless DVR camera system, and I was at a location and I was picking up these strange noises, and I reached out to Brandon. I'm like, Brandon, what is this? And he said, "Is there a radio tower nearby?" I was like, "Yeah, but these aren't recording wirelessly, they're recording straight to an SD card." And he said, doesn't matter. Those can actually pick up radio frequencies. I'm like, there's no way. Like,
Wow.
that is so insane. And it just, like, I was so excited to be able to debunk that because that's so crazy. I would have never thought that a radio tower can interfere with a camera and imprint sounds onto it. So
Yeah,
there's so many things out there.
that's it. And I think with that aspect, we are both lucky to have these kind of individuals that are prepared to help us and that we can fall back on if there's something that we don't understand or that we're not fully clear on what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so moving along, you decided to write a couple of books. So, did the idea of the books come first, or did the idea of the Dead Chronicles come first?
So the books came first. The first one was about a case that I went on. Oh, it's been probably about 10 years now. That was the worst case I'd ever been on. And that was something that I'd actually written that book, I think, 15 times and threw it away just because the claims in that book are claims that I've heard and I thought people were crazy for saying that this stuff could happen. And I was worried that if I put this out there that, I would be destroyed. And, people would be like, oh, no, he's not reliable because he said this, this, and this. But eventually I put that out. And then it was a few years later where I had put out my second book. It was a combination of a reoccurring nightmare I had since a child, and then dealing with a kind of traumatic event where, you dealing in your line of work, we had a man who was crushed to death, and we were tasked to try to save him. And there was no saving him, so we had to continue performing CPR knowing it was helpless, and just that whole situation. I'm not a person to be in the medical field. I stay away from that. I don't do well with that stuff. So to kind of deal with that, I wrote it all into one book, and then eventually the Dead Chronicles kind of happened.
Okay, so let's talk about Taylor Mill.
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes.
So you've just mentioned like how it came about by personal experiences. So how did that turn into writing down notes and then turn into your first book?
Well, that was a little bit later. I'd been investigating for about 2 or 3 years at that point. And, like I said, we started out at Waverly Hills, and we were trying to go for your bigger locations that would have more activity. So we weren't totally green to investigating. You're never a professional, you're never an expert, but we weren't, totally new to the field. And we just happened to decide to go to Bobby Mackey's to investigate. And then they offered us this place to stay. I'm like, okay, cool. And the things that we experienced inside that home and the claims that the owner had were so horrific that they stuck with us for the longest time. And that was the only place in my entire life where I was totally convinced I was going to die inside that home. It was that bad. And so that stuck with me for months afterwards, between nightmares, and then I was followed by something that would watch me sleep at night. And I actually got a picture of it just standing next to my bed. And, I started having activity around my house. So, I always say, like people talk about, hey, I'm getting out of the paranormal field. And it's like, man, I would have never had that opportunity. I couldn't stop thinking about this or this location or anything because it was now my life. I'm stuck. It's here. So what are you going to do? I just decided to start writing.
Wow. And that's actually really interesting because when I first came to Canada, I wanted to get into the workforce as quickly as I could, but obviously when I was on a visitor's visa to start off with. So when I finally got a job, I started off as a security guard, and literally all I was doing was sitting at a desk checking ID cards. So I had a electronic book with me, started to read books on fire departments and paramedics and stuff. And every time that I read a story, I would write down notes of stories that I remembered from when I was in the job.
Oh, cool.
And then, so started writing down notes, and then those notes ended up to be short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of these people where it's like, I probably don't think it's good enough, but I've probably got a good, 60, 70 stories now. Yeah. And it's like, it's been sat on my computer for the longest time thinking, I might do something with it one day, but
right.
Like imposter syndrome kind of thing.
Right.
And it's like, but how did you personally feel when you started to write about this? And did you ever think that you'd get it published?
I really didn't know that I was ever going to get it published. I also didn't really know what I was doing because, like I said, I ended up doing it like 15 times. So I kind of had the idea of it, but I can't say that it didn't make me feel any better about the situation. That's for sure. If anything, it introduced more anxiety, knowing, oh God, people are going to read this and think I'm crazy.
For sure.
So it was just very, very interesting until some people just finally convinced me, you got to put this out because there's other people out there who are thinking the same thing, who might be going through the same situation. And, for them to know that they're not alone, that's why you need to put this out there. So there for a second, I felt a little bit better about putting it out,
Yeah. And what was the response when it was published?
Yeah, there honestly wasn't too much negativity thrown my way. The only negativity was that someone said it was too religious, which I don't know what that means. There's like a priest in there, because there was in the actual story. But there were some people who reached out and they're like, oh, wow, this is crazy. I've experienced this. I've experienced this. And that did make me feel better about, once again, letting people know. Because it's interesting when I talked to the owner, because originally it was him, his wife, and his daughter. And he was having all of the experiences. And his wife and his daughter wasn't really having many experiences. And I asked him, I said, did you ever think there was a moment where you were going insane? And he said, yeah. He was like, I was actually going to go to a hospital and get myself evaluated. And it wasn't until his wife and daughter started having experiences they realized, okay, I'm not crazy. So for people to know that they're not insane, they're not losing their mind, that this stuff does happen, I think that's important,
Yeah, and I think it also means that, like you said a few minutes ago, people know that they're not alone.
Right. Absolutely.
For you to experience that and to put it into black and white, and then for people to reach out and go, can I speak to you? Because I've had this happen and I want to know that I'm not going crazy.
Right.
And I think that's important. So moving on to the Dead Chronicles.
Yes.
Where did that seed of thought come from?
Yeah, so originally I had filmed at a location a couple years back, the Randolph County Asylum in Winchester, Indiana. And I filmed there with another group, and we got some pretty compelling evidence. And after that, I was like, all right, on to the next location, And I got asked to go back, and I'm like, I feel like I got what I needed there. I'm good. I want to move on to the next place, next place, next place. And so it wasn't until about a year ago that I had returned, because some good friends of mine who have a podcast, they were doing an event out at the asylum. And I was like, I'll go out there just to see them and, hang out with them. So I did. And something just clicked with me again. And it's all surrounding the story of this woman named Ida Gunkel. And she was a resident there who ended up with neurosyphilis. And she was a good person by all accounts. But the problem was that this started to eat away at her brain. She started, wandering out into the field, into the highway, doing all kinds of dangerous stuff at night. And so the asylum was actually a poor farm. It wasn't a mental asylum. It was an asylum because it was a safe place for people to go. And they didn't know what to do with her. Her family didn't want her put in a mental asylum because back then, that's not a good place to be,
Oh, yeah.
So they decided to lock her down in the basement during nighttime and then let her out during daytime. And one night she had asked for a broom to clean up, and they were like, yeah, great. She's getting better. She wants to clean her room. Perfect. So they gave her a broom, and what she had done was she had put it through the exposed piping above her bed and tore up her mattress and ended up hanging herself. And
Jeez.
yeah, it's very, very graphic. And as I went back, you start hearing these stories about her that just doesn't make sense, about how she was this crazy, evil woman who, then you start going on these. That night there was a public investigation, people going down there, oh, how did it feel when you killed yourself? Stuff like that. And I'm just like, wait a second, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And then so I started going back to the asylum more and more. And the moment that I realized I was going to do this was there was a group there, and they were going to stay there overnight. And one of the women was a self-proclaimed psychic medium. And so her group went off on the tour, and she said, I don't need to go. I know everything. And so I sat in the room with her, and she started telling me about how Ida was this horrible, horrible woman who was killing people, who was doing this, who was doing that. And I was literally shaking. I was so mad. I was like, I'm not about to fight a 60-year-old woman. So I'm going to go in this other room. So I sat down in the other room and I picked up a book and I started looking at it. And I heard the door to the basement open and close. And I was like, oh, must be the group. Okay. And then I'm looking down at my book and I see right over the top of the book this apparition walk into the room and just stand there looking at me. And I look up and it's just gone. And I could just feel this immense sadness just overtake the entire room. And I was like, okay, I hear you. We're going to set this stuff straight. We're going to start this series specifically to try to set everything straight at all these locations, to try to tell people's actual stories, to rehumanize, these spirits.
That is crazy. So, have you actually been back there since?
Yes, I've been back there many, many, many times.
Is the atmosphere still the same, or do you think it's changed after you've kind of told her story, so to speak?
It is honestly 1,000,000% changed, and it changed for a couple of reasons, I think. Number one, there were claims of all these graves, these mass graves on the property, and no one knew where they were. So I actually raised money and brought a good friend of mine, Billy Wilkerson, out from Kentucky. He drove like 8 hours. And what he does is he does ground penetrating radar to find lost graves. And then he'll repair lost gravestones and stuff like that. And we ended up finding over 250 graves. Some of those were mass graves with hundreds of bodies. Some of them were double graves where it was like mother and child, they believe. And after that, I noticed that things started getting a little bit different there. They started interacting with me a lot more. It's like I had earned their respect. Then after we started telling Ida's story, her room, people would go on a tour there, not even knowing the history, and they walk out bawling. And they'd be like, I don't know why, but I am crying. Like, okay, we'll tell you the story about that room. And it was always a really sad, dark place. After we finished, it's not that way anymore. And one of the interesting things is that one time I was walking down the hallway with one of the guides out there, and we were going to go to the specific room. And as we walked past, we both look in her room. And it's one of those things where now at the asylum, you'll see stuff and it's just normal. So we get to the room and she turns to me and she was like, did you see it? You saw that, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, there was a man and he was sitting in a chair right next to her bed with kind of his head down in his hands, just like waiting for her. And they always said that she was trapped in that room because of the depression, because of, the suicide and everything else. And to me, that was confirmation that, we have this man there waiting for her return, that she's no longer stuck there,
That is unbelievable. And one thing that I like about doing podcasts are those kind of stories that you've just mentioned, because my jaw just goes like, ugh. Because it's really hard to put yourself in that position, from her perspective and from your perspective, because you've definitely, if it's possible, put that spirit at rest or at ease, so to speak, and that's your doing. It's nobody else's. It's just your doing. So that must make you feel. I don't want to use the word proud, but have a good feeling about yourself that you've actually been able to put her at ease. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, I am still a big skeptic, so I will never say that spirits or ghosts or anything actually 100% exist. But if that's the case, that does make me feel better. But even if that isn't necessarily the case, this goes beyond to where now other people can hear her story and relate to her and apply it to their own life. And every single location has that. And it's this way where we can all seek kind of this mental health thing together throughout all these locations, all these stories, all these places, and, have places, people that you can relate to and you can learn from. Because, for example, in Ida's case, about a year later, we had a treatment for syphilis, and she might have been completely okay after that. She might have been cured from her disease. but she decided to take her life just before that happened. There was light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And to me, that's powerful. That's a powerful story for people to know and hear if you're out there struggling, that, there is light just down the road.
Yeah, and like being a paramedic for such a long time, I can relate. I've seen people at their worst. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I've had 2 or 3 patients that I've got them into hospital, and they're thanking me for saving their lives. And there's nothing more that a human person can say to you
Right.
that makes you feel any better. It's like, thank you for saving my life. And it's sort of like, it blows you away some of the time. And, yeah, I will admit, it does bring you to tears as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insanely powerful. And,
Yeah.
we can take this paranormal field and do things like that instead of just being worried about who gets the most views, who catches the craziest evidence. We can apply these things, and it gets a little dodgy sometimes. Like I just put out an episode where I investigated the boyhood church of Reverend Jim Jones, and but you can take that and detail his childhood to adulthood, what had happened to him, why he became this way, and really raise, once again, this mental health awareness so that people can navigate lives better. And if we're not living to help other people live a better and more comfortable, loving life, then what is the point, right?
Exactly. And I did kind of see something on your Facebook about Jim Jones. I didn't know who he was.
Oh,
Like
wow.
coming from England,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we've probably got serial killers in the UK that you've never heard of.
Right.
Yeah, so I actually did a bit of googling to find out who he was, and it's like, wow, it's like, yeah, this guy had a crazy life. He certainly did, and it's interesting that you're able to put the pieces together of his entire life,
Mm-hmm.
not what just made him a bad person in the public eye.
Exactly. Because even these bad people, we can still learn so much from them. That's why we have history classes. That's why we study things like Nazi Germany and stuff like that. It's because we can learn from them so that these things don't happen again. And if they start happening, we can be like, wait a second.
Yeah, for sure. So you've how many stories are in the Dead Chronicles? Is it 5? I think I read 5 episodes.
So the pilot season is going to be 4 episodes.
Okay, 4.
Right now I'm working on the first official season, which is going to be completely different from well, not necessarily completely different, but it's going to be way different from what is uploaded now. It's going to be a lot more put together and everything. That first season was something that I put out just to be like, okay, what's it going to take to do this? And what can I do with what I have, and what do I need? So we're just going to throw something out there, see how some of the elements work out with people, just kind of, a little taste test. Let's see what you think about this, so that now we can start the real work. So this season that I'm working on will be 12 episodes, 12 different locations, like 5 or 6 different states. It's going to be exciting.
Is there anything that you can share about those right yet, or is it still in the secret stage?
No, I mean, it's going to be the most interesting set of locations. For example, we just got back not too long ago from the Euro Shrine, which is a shrine in Bristol, Tennessee, where they allow everyone to come in and worship. So at any given time, you will have Satanists, witches, necromancers, Christians, voodoo, hoodoo, all in this place practicing at once.
Wow.
So that's going to be a wild episode. I'm really excited for that one. But it's going from that to some old historical places. I'm going to be going to Stagecoach Inn here not too long, which is a really cool place where they would actually stay in Kentucky, because this area in Kentucky was the only place where dueling was legal. So they would travel from states away to come duel each other, and they would stay at this hotel.
Oh man, it's
Then we'll
crazy.
have stuff like nursing homes, jails. I mean, it's just such a hodgepodge of locations. It's going to be really interesting, really exciting.
Yeah. So how do you pick these locations? Is it your personal choice, or is there somebody else that goes, I think you should go here?
These locations always find me. I start out trying to pick locations, but that never really works out. It always seems like all these locations come to you. Either someone's like, "Hey, I know this place," or "You should check out this place." And I don't think that I picked out I picked out one of the locations, I believe, for this season, and that's it. The rest just fell into my lap.
And it's I find that like really interesting because I was talking to some girls from BC that have had a TV show on T&E, and when they were picked up by the TV company, it was kind of they kind of had some input into where they went, but overall it was like, right, we have these locations. Where do you want to go? Pick, and you had to pick a certain number.
Right.
So, do you get suggested locations that you think, oh, no, I'm not going to go there?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit. But so one of the things that I like to do, one of the things that this season is going to be about, is that I'm going to have a researcher, and I'm going into these places 1,000,000% blind. I don't know the history. I don't know the claims. I know nothing. Because that, if you know those things, it can really affect the way you investigate. And when you're reviewing evidence like EVPs, you could be like, "Oh, I think it said this," based off of something that you have already built into your head. So what I'll be doing is going in there blind to everything, and then at the end, I will sit down with the researcher, show my evidence, and say, "Does this line up to the claims and the history of the place?" So I, it's tough for me to really turn down many locations because I don't want to know anything at all.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see kind of both sides of the coin, because yes, you go into a location not knowing anything, but you know that other people have experienced something, but you don't know what.
Right.
But then I also look at it in the positive. So yeah, but you've just kind of put the mockers on that by saying, if you know that there was a John living here and John died, and then you hear an EVP and you get John, it would have to be 100% clear, because if you hear something that sounds like John, but you're not 100%, your brain's just going to go, no, that said John.
Right.
And it kind of, it contaminates your mind for doing genuine investigations.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, if they say there's a spirit named John here, then everyone's coming in, and over in the corner is Frank. Like, what the hell? What about me? Why does no one want to talk to me? John's not even here right now. So I like the fact that I've always gone against the grain when it comes to investigating. If they tell me this is the hottest spot, you need to go here, I'm like, okay, what's the opposite place? Because if this is the hottest spot, everyone's going there, draining it of everything. Let me go somewhere completely different. Let me ask for someone completely else, So this is giving me that opportunity to really do that.
Yeah, and that also brings us full circle to what we was talking about at the beginning about people that just go there for the shits and giggles, so to speak.
Yes.
And sort of like, okay, is there anybody here that wants to talk to me? And like all the spirits are going, oh God, yeah, I've had enough of this crap.
right. One of my favorite thoughts that I always say is that, if when we pass away, we're allowed to go wherever we want. I want to go back to these places like Waverly Hills and stuff like that and see if I can see it in their timeline, right? So how many times do we go into these locations and it's these old paranormal investigators just messing with us? Like, oh, look at these idiots. They don't know what they're doing. Let's mess with them.
That's it. And it'll be, hey, Frank, go and throw a stone over there and they'll get them chasing that corner.
Right, exactly. They will do something over here.
Yeah. And like that was one thing about this location that I went to at the weekend. Like I say, it's a really nice hotel, absolutely beautiful hotel. And there's a door at the bottom of the stairs, and it's been boarded up for like 40 to 50 years. They've had two instances where people have been coming downstairs looking for the owner or whatever, see that there's a party going on or like a black tie dinner, thinking that they're underdressed. They don't go in the room, they leave and carry on, find the owner, say, "Oh, I thought you might be at the party," and they go, "What party?"
Right.
And like this door, like I say, has not been open for 40, 50 years, but two guests not recently, but in the last few years, have seen parties going on through that door.
Right.
And like you say, that would be a genuine hotspot, as are the two bedrooms that we stayed in. Hence, one of them was where I saw an apparition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did I see it? Only I experienced it. No cameras recording. So it's only my personal experience that I can talk about. I can't talk about other things that happened.
Right.
And that's the thing about the paranormal. Most of the time, it's personal experience. And that's the kind of thing that kind of puts a mocker on it a little bit because only one person experienced it. It's your word against mine kind of thing. And the fact that you can go forward and put these stories out there, like, it makes people open up for, as we've already mentioned, and people are more willing to talk about these experiences, that they're not going crazy.
Right.
It's people like you and me, because we always tell people that we go out to help people.
Yes.
So we will look for black mold, we'll look for EMF, we'll look for rodents and all that kind of stuff before we even consider anything paranormal. So once you've done the checklist, then you can kind of switch hats and then start looking, well, is this of a paranormal existence? And then move forward from there. So I would love to be in a position that you can do, like to go to all these locations and actually make a product at the end of the day. Because I think that would be really cool. And so I am slightly envious of what you're currently doing. And I'll be getting your autograph later.
I don't know about all that, but yeah, it's amazing. It's a lot of work, but it's well worth it just to be able to be inside of some of these locations is astonishing.
So one thing that I'd like to talk about before we have to go, unfortunately, is I think I'm not quite sure if I read it or heard it on one of the other podcasts. It's the old Blackford County Jail.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I just put out the video from that jail not too long ago. That place is incredible. That is a place that I had visited about 11 years ago, I believe, and had some absolutely insane experiences. One of the crazy experiences, we're talking about how, people think, if I say this, I'm going to be crazy. This is one of the experiences that I never really share. So when we had got there, oddly enough, the owner of the jail is the same owner of the asylum and everything else. So we got to meet up 10 years later. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you. And he still remembered these stories. But one of the craziest, probably the craziest experience I had was when we were down in the basement. They've got like this dungeon type thing going on. I don't know. It's creepy. It's weird. And me and my partner were walking down the hallway, and I look over and I see this small gnome-like figure just standing there. And then I look directly at it, and it darts off into the room. And I go and I go into this room, and at the time it was all rubble. There was nowhere you could go. And I saw this thing standing probably about 2 feet high. And my partner asked me, what'd you see? What'd you see? What'd you see? And I'm like, nothing. And he finally gets it out of me. And we actually stayed there for 3 nights. So for the next 2 nights, he was just making fun of me nonstop. So on the 3rd night, we had the owner, Dan, take us through on a tour, because back then I said, we don't want to know the history. We don't want to know the hauntings. Let's do it on the 3rd night and see if we experience, whatever. And so we were down in that basement, and he was giving us some stories. He was like, oh yeah. He's like, there's one other thing down here. We're like, what? He was like, this guy captured a gnome down here on film. And my partner just looked at me and his jaw just dropped. And so going back 10 years later to film again, everyone has these stories now. Everyone has seen these things out there. And it's so crazy. But even the more crazy experience that I had there that still sticks with me, still annoys the crap out of me, was we were there, we were in the kitchen, we were getting ready to start investigating. The owner was over in his office. We hear this. Well, first, my buddy says it's 11:11, make a wish. And I was like, man, I hope we catch something crazy tonight. Then we hear this loud thud. It's just thud, thud. And we're like, what the heck? So we get up, we start walking around, and the owner's like, grab some cameras, there's something going on. And we go up the stairs because it was a jailer's residence and a jail connected together. So we go up the stairs of jailer's residence, and the owner's like, that clock's working. It hasn't worked in like 2 to 3 months now because it's not balanced. It's one of those old clocks. We had to get the weights balanced in them or else they wouldn't work. And we're like, that's strange. He was like, yeah, and that painting fell on top of it. So this painting just had like the wire just ripped, and it falls down on top of this clock, and it starts the clock. And what time is it? It's 11:11 on the clock, the exact second that it is in real life. And I'm just like, what is going on? I still don't know. It still bugs me to this day.
Oh man, that is strange. And it's really funny that you mentioned about the time, because at the weekend, one of our guys was doing a solo investigation, and we were looking on the MVR watching him. And my colleague said, "How long is it before we finish?" And we do have an Ovilus 5, but obviously, we don't take it as gospel. Before we either of us looked at the stopwatch, because we're doing it for 30 minutes, the Ovilus comes before 9 minutes, and we looked down at the stopwatch, and it was like 8 minutes and 22 seconds left.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's like, hang on a minute, yes, with the Ovilus, you don't take every word as gospel, and you don't fit the word into what the investigation.
Right,
it's the other way around.
Right.
But for that to come out with that at that precise time, like what are the odds? What are the chances? It was like really bizarre.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so Austin, we are coming towards the end of the podcast. Unfortunately, I could talk to you all night. But what's on the horizon for Austin Lawrence? What have you got planned for the future?
So we're going to continue filming. Like I said, season 1, it will be out probably next year, and there will actually be a book with it. Each season will have a book, and the plans for the book is it's going to have the history of every single location, all of our notes on the locations, the hot spots, everything you'll want to know, all the stories, death certificates, all that stuff thrown in there, so that people can also pick it up and learn about some new locations. And if they want to go investigate, there's your guide, and have fun.
That would be pretty cool. When are you expecting it to actually come out into the public domain?
Sometime before 2030.
Okay.
I can't say for certain because we're looking at 12 episodes, and I am I'm the cinematographer, the videographer, the editor, the sound design, everything. So it's one man doing everything from reviewing evidence to putting it together. So there's no telling. And I work a full-time job, so
yeah, it's one of those scenarios where your full-time job's getting in the way of your part-time career.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I'm running into now. So we'll see. Hopefully soon.
Oh man. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. So, Austin, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You've had some really amazing and fantastic stories. I wish you well, and hopefully your first season comes out before 2030. I'll come and back here. I'll come and back and keep pushing you to ignore the full-time job. Let's do this.
Right.
Yeah. But my friend, I absolutely thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care, my friend.
You too.